It's the worst of the CBC for November 11th, 2019, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. Now, it is Remembrance Day. So there was going to be no episode because they just had a Remembrance Day special on the entire day. Good for them. But this is the Don Cherry episode because Don Cherry had been fired from a mixture between CBC and Rogers off of Hockey Night Canada for comments about Remembrance Day and the poppy. And I think, there's a lot of things to say here, and this shows just how stupid and polarized our society is. The number one thing everyone's going to and saying, and I've said this too, and I fully believe, the reason people are saying it is because it's objectively true. The same people, the media elites, and the people who voted for blackface Justin Trudeau said, okay, I can vote for Justin Trudeau, but Don Cherry needs to lose his job for saying things about immigrants and the poppy. So that is stark hypocrisy. And I pointed out Bruce Arthur, who wrote the column in the Toronto Star sports thing, who's very far left on politics and supported Justin Trudeau, and Rosemary Barden, who retweeted that, and we all know I hate Rosemary Barden. She retweeted the fire Don Cherry thing. So he's been fired. Now, let's go over what he said. People are focusing in because you can't use the phrase. He said, you people come to our country, you like the milk and honey, but you don't want to pay a couple of dollars to do the people who pay for it. Essentially, it was a classic Don Cherry rant, okay? If anyone's been watching Hockey Night in Canada, like me, I didn't like Don Cherry in the 90s when I was a kid because he was just loud, you kids out there, and he was just yelling about stuff, and it's like, what, I need this. But recently, in the last 10 years, he's been so much better because it's been less and less coherent as it goes along. So he starts off every Saturday, it's like, look how good looking these hockey players are, kids, you dress up like this, and then they come into the bank and look at this, and he goes there, and that's what I say. I told you what, shut up, Ron. And it was great. He goes on a rant. Ron McLean looks really nervous, like, oh my God, is this going to be the week where he says something? And then he usually skates by and then tells Ron to shut up and then says, well, how much time do I left? 2 minutes on. Oh, I should have more time. Then he rants for a minute and a half. I should have more time. Then he tries to go into something and then it wraps up. It's classic Don Cherry. Now, if you've known Don Cherry, you know he likes two things: the troops and Canadians. And if we're going to try and play this, oh, Don Cherry doesn't like immigrants game, it's not going to work when you look at his career record. So one of the things that really bothered me about sort of NHL commentary, a couple years ago, is how many people were slagging on PK Subban for being too flashy. And I kind of saw this veiled as like, he's black and emotive. So I thought, and it was, again, a lot of left-wing sports media was going after him. Don Cherry loved PK Subban. Why? Not because PK Subban was black. PK Subban was Canadian and played hockey. Don Cherry loves Canadians. Okay, Canada number 1, America number 2. Then you have neutral. Then right under neutral, there are Europeans. He's not a fan of Europeans. And then all the way under that is Russians, those dirty commies. Hates Russians. Absolutely hates Russians. That's who Don Cherry is. Another one, the first Muslim player to make it into the NHL, Nazem Kadri. Cherry loved him. He was brown, he was Muslim, but he was Canadian, and he played hockey. Don Cherry loved him. Now, any reasonable hockey person, when Nazem Kadri came to the league, Nazem Kadri isn't the most lovable player to when he started out, because as a Leaf fan, I can tell you Nazem Kadri is stupid. And he was very, very stupid, defensively unsound, like the behind-the-scenes footage. Like, honestly, if there was a Celebrity Jeopardy match between Justin Trudeau, Nazem Kadri, and a Rock, I'm picking Rock. Because the other two were ended up in the negatives. So that's one of my safer bets of all time. But Don Cherry loved him. Why do you love him? Because he's Canadian and he played hockey. These are Don Cherry standards, right? So if we kind of say like, oh, Don Cherry doesn't hate anyone, that's not true. He doesn't like Russians and commies. But we've always known that. The other thing is Don Cherry loves the troops. Has always been a big fan of Remembrance Day. Anytime a troop would die during the war in Afghanistan, you would get barely any coverage on the CBC, barely any coverage in the news, but every Saturday night, there would be 1 to 2 minutes of a tribute on every soldier who lost their lives. Don Cherry cared a lot about Remembrance Day and honoring the troops and doing stuff for our fallen and past and future veterans. This was one of Don Cherry's things, and everyone kind of knows this. And he basically went off on a rant against Mississauga and downtown Toronto, two places I know quite well. The Tech TV studios are in Mississauga. And basically, yes, he went off on, basically it was a rant that, it's hypocritical for immigrants to come to Canada and not buy the poppy. People sacrifice their lives to build a country that you can escape to and thrive in. The least you can do is pay a couple bucks to pay them back. Now, people can be mad at the fact of the way he went about it. Now, I think that's a bit silly considering, guys, it's Don Cherry. Okay? He hasn't been coherent in 10 years, and it's been hilarious. 2, no one really disagrees with his message. No one, honestly, if we take every individual out, we could say, hey, okay, do you believe, we're not pulling but do you believe that, immigrants should buy a poppy to honor veterans who sacrificed their lives for the country? Everyone say, yeah. Everyone, you should pay $1 a year, whatever. So buy one, lose it, pay another 50 cents, lose it, pay another $1. It goes to a good cause. Everyone believes in this. Now, to make it worse, they fired Don Cherry on Remembrance Day. Now, if you really want to do good for immigrants, which I do, I will never accuse the CBC or the left of actually wanting to do well for immigrants. Individually, yes. As a collective, no. What you've now done is you've fired Don Cherry, who has done probably the most to promote, respect and charity for our veterans on Remembrance Day. This means every time someone goes to Mississauga and sees someone who isn't white not wearing a poppy, they're going to think, these immigrants, Don Cherry was right. Don Cherry's right. Now people are going to be looking. Now there's going to be a thing. Right now it's another thing tearing us apart. And listen, okay, I don't have any statistics here. And, some immigrants always wear it. I mean, everyone on TV wears it. I was at an event this weekend put on by the Council for Muslims Facing Tomorrow. Very multicultural crowd. More than half non-white, 95% of people wearing a poppy. But that's in a event of a more pro-Canadian values group. I mean, if the Council of Muslims Facing Toronto, I guarantee you 95% of their audience wears poppies. Whereas like the NCCM or ISNA or ICNA, I guarantee you it's like 15% of their audience would wear a poppy. So there's a gradient here. And all we've done is just push another thing of dividing. So we have to get rid of Don Cherry, who, let's be honest, 2 weeks ago, if Don Cherry died, he would probably have the biggest funeral in Canada of anyone ever, because he's legitimately an icon. And this is how you do it. So Justin Trudeau can be a serial blackface performer. Fine. He gets our vote. But Don Cherry says something that we're all implicitly thinking, but we just don't verbalize. And this is when you get him. And then you want to say, Don Cherry doesn't respect immigrants. If immigrants played hockey, he loves them. If people don't play hockey, he doesn't notice you. Right? This is Canadians, Americans, neutral, Europeans, Russians. That's the Don Cherry hierarchy of human beings. If he's like, what about Africa and Asia? I guarantee you he doesn't even know they exist because they don't play hockey. This is Don Cherry. This has always been who he is. And firing him was a stupid move. You can give him like a 1, maybe 2 week suspension. Everyone cools down and we all get back to normal. But this knee-jerk, hyper-partisan reaction, this is why I said we shouldn't go after and ask Trudeau to step down. Just say, you know what? If we give this mulligan to Trudeau, saying we're not going to cancel him, right? He did something bad, but people can come back. The hope was the next time something happens, like this Don Cherry, people on the left would say, you know what? This is a dangerous game. So let's push compassion into both sides. But the left, compassion only if you agree with absolutely everything we believe. So that's the worst of the CBC today. Good of them for coming on Remembrance Day, but firing Don Cherry on Remembrance Day means you get a 10 out of 10 on the Rosemary Barton scale for today. I will see everyone tomorrow.